I'm sure we have all heard of saturated and unsaturated fats before. Saturated fats are the ones that clog our arteries, right? Well, that's not exactly true. Both saturated and unsaturated fats are healthy, but we should include them in our diets in different ways. For example, one of these fats should never be used for high heat cooking. And I bet you'd be surprised to find out which one that is. In this video, we are going to talk about the important differences between saturated and unsaturated fat, how and when you should be consuming each, and busting some myths about saturated fat while we're at it. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kate. I'm a health coach and I post videos on a high-fat, nutrient-dense way of eating. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, feel free to share, and make sure to subscribe. And make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where I share new posts every single day. The topic of today is fat. Saturated fat versus unsaturated fat. Saturated fat has been built up to be this evil food that we should severely limit. But this demonization is unfair and not backed by evidence. What are fats? Before we get into the different types of fats, let's take a step back and talk about what fats are. Fats are made up of carbon and hydrogen. The arrangement and length of these structures determines the type of fat. Fats are important for several reasons within the body. They give us energy. We can either get energy from glucose, which is carbs, or from fat. They form our cell membranes, our brain, and our nervous system. They help us transport and absorb fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. They help make and balance hormones, primarily sex hormones. And they give us two essential fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6. As you can see, fat is a critical part of our health. The types of fat. Fatty acids can be divided into two main categories, saturated fat and unsaturated fat. Saturated fat has all carbons bonded to hydrogens, and unsaturated fat is missing some hydrogens. Because all carbons are bonded to hydrogen in saturated fats, this makes their structure straight. This means they can pack together more tightly, and this is why these types of fat are solid at room temperature. Examples of fats that are mainly saturated are butter, ghee, coconut oil, and tallow. Unsaturated fats are slightly bent, and this means they cannot pack together as tightly, therefore they are liquid at room temperature. Examples of unsaturated fats are olive oil, avocado oil, cod liver oil, and soybean oil. Now, most foods that include fat contain some combination of both of these fats. Butter, for example, is 66% saturated fat and 34% unsaturated. Now, unsaturated fats can be broken down further into two main categories, monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats. Mono has only one carbon missing a hydrogen bond, and poly has more than 4. And here's why this is important. The more missing hydrogens, the more fragile the fat is. This means it is more likely to oxidize when exposed to heat, oxygen, and light. Oxidized fats are extremely harmful to the body. When we consume them, they cause free radical damage and oxidative stress. To put that in layman's terms, you are pretty much setting loose a whole bunch of dangerous particles within your body. They start damaging your DNA, your fatty tissues, and your proteins. Oxidative stress can cause heart disease, hypertension, hardening of your arteries, neurodegenerative diseases, cancer, and also aging. You can also be exposed to free radicals from cigarette smoke, pollution, and pesticides. Everyone knows that these things are dangerous for our bodies, but consuming oxidized fats can also cause the same damage. Monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fat. As I said before, monounsaturated fats are only missing one bond, whereas polyunsaturated fats are missing more than 4. And this means that polyunsaturated fats are the most fragile and are the most susceptible to oxidation. Examples of fats that are mainly monounsaturated fats are olive oil, avocado oil, and macadamia oil. These types of fats are not as stable as saturated fat is, but they are more stable than polyunsaturated. Examples of fats that are mainly polyunsaturated are fish oil, cod liver oil, and soybean oil. Now, these types of fats are so fragile. They should never be exposed to heat, light, or excess oxygen. Unfortunately, a lot of oils that are high in polyunsaturated fat are often recommended for cooking. Soybean oil, grapeseed oil, corn oil. These oils may have a high smoke point, but the smoke point is not the same as the point at which these fats oxidize. As we already discussed, these types of fats are super fragile and shouldn't be heated at all. But unfortunately, even if you think you might be okay using these oils as a salad dressing or at room temperature, the truth is these oils are brought to extreme heats during processing and almost certainly are already oxidized when you buy them. The saturated fat myth. There are several claims about saturated fat that all of us have had drilled into our minds. Saturated fat causes heart disease. Saturated fat causes diabetes. Saturated fat clogs your arteries. None of these are true. The thinking that saturated fat clogs our arteries comes from the idea that because saturated fats are solid at room temperature, the same happens to them when they're inside our body. This is a very simplistic way of thinking of it and has never been proven to be true. Now, there is some weak evidence from epidemiology studies that higher consumption of saturated fat has been linked to heart disease. I talked about this a few videos ago, but these are studies that look at large groups of people and try to draw conclusions between their habits and their health outcomes. The problem is that this type of science cannot draw conclusions because there are so many variables. The way they gather this data is from food frequency questionnaires that rely on self-reporting. The problem with food frequency questionnaires is that people cannot remember what they ate every day, let alone calculate averages. These studies do not prove that eating excess saturated fat causes heart disease. Yes, these people who have heart disease seem to eat more saturated fat, but they are also eating more refined carbs, more sugar, they're exercising less, they're smoking, they're drinking. How can you pinpoint the cause to the saturated fat? To frame this another way, here are some other examples of things that are linked, a correlation, but one does not necessarily cause the other. As iPhone sales increase, more people die from falling down the stairs. Does this mean that iPhones are causing people to fall down the stairs? I mean, it's possible, but this is in no way proof. It is simply a correlation. And the same can be applied to saturated fat causing heart disease. Saturated fat is good for us. It is essential for energy, our hormones, and the tissues in our body it makes up. It is the best type of fat to use when cooking because it can withstand high heats. It has been shown to raise HDL in the body, which is a protective form of cholesterol. This type of cholesterol cleans up damaged cholesterol within the body. So in summary, unsaturated fat is good for you, but you should not use it for cooking. Saturated fat is also good for you and is the best choice when you're cooking. The idea that saturated fat causes heart disease or any other disease is a complete myth. It is not backed by evidence. But anyways, guys, that is all I have for you today. Let me know in the comment section down below when you first learned that saturated fat was actually healthy and how you came to that realization. Maybe you just learned it for the first time today. Let me know down below. And while we're here busting food myths, you can check out my video on salt next. You can click right here. If you want to catch up on my most recent upload, you can click here. And if you want to start a keto or carnivore diet, you can check out my coaching programs here. Thank you again, guys, for watching. If you made it this far, give the video a thumbs up and click that subscribe button. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.